we had the return of the Bronze Bomber as he got the split decision win over Derek Chisora.
Yeah, this was an absolute scrap, like a street fight. These guys weren't even boxing in there. They were just going in there and trying to knock each other's head off.
A lot of people were saying round 8 of that fight was round of the year. Maybe it's time for the 42-year-old Derek Chisora, despite many moments he's given to the UK audience, for him to retire.
I just don't see the point. There's no real goal for him other than maybe just get a win.
But now Deontay Wilder's out there calling out Anthony Joshua. Last time we saw Anthony Joshua was when he stopped Jake Paul.
I'd love to see that fight, man. We've been talking about that fight for such a long time. There's definitely been bad blood in the past between these two.
I'm not too keen about these two guys fighting. Do you think AJ doesn't have a lot more ring IQ? Bro, he's going to make Wilder look like a novice. He's just going to put him out of his misery in under 6.
Welcome back to another episode of the Last Round Podcast, where we cover everything from traditional boxing to influencer boxing and everything in between. Today's episode, we'll be going over Deontay Wilder's split decision win over Derek Chisora, as well as Tim Tszyu's return, and giving our official prediction for the return of Tyson Fury this upcoming week. But before we get into the episode, make sure to like and subscribe and follow us on all forms of social media. Lastly, we're trying to build up a community on Discord, and you guys joining would be greatly appreciated. And now diving into the episode, we had the return of the Bronze Bomber as he got the split decision win over Derek Chisora over in the O2 Arena. A lot of people were saying round 8 of that fight was round of the year. We had a couple questionable knockdowns in there, a lot of questionable calls. At the end of the day, though, Deontay Wilder returned with a split decision win over Chisora. First off, thoughts about the fight?
Yeah, this was an absolute scrap. I think it could definitely be a fight of the year contender. Both of these guys coming in at the later part of their career, Wilder being 40 and Chisora being 42. We just really wanted to see some entertainment, and these guys brought that entertainment to us.
Yeah. Before I even dive into that fight, let's take a step back, maybe a couple days prior to that. In the lead up for this fight, they were doing quite a bit of promotion for this fight. They both were on the Piers Morgan show, and I thought it was very interesting the fact that Wilder had some crazy thing to say. He said the fact that his baby mama, without his knowledge, impregnated herself behind his back, which I found was so crazy. And so, because we are podcasters, we are journalists at the end of the day, I looked it up a little bit, what the laws about that are. Very much a big gray area, to say the least. So I think once he said that, I think it made the fight even more interesting. I think it put a lot more eyes onto that fight. And I think at the end of the day, even though these two guys were both above 40 years old, they did deliver. When you think about two old uncles having too much to drink, and then they start getting into an argument and start swinging, that's kind of what it felt like. It felt like two older guys past their prime. This fight, if I could describe it, no technique, no skill, but a lot of heart and courage.
Yeah, because, the skill level was not there, and both of these guys, Wilder, I was expecting a lot more from him. These past couple years haven't been that great for him. Chisora is on a little win streak, but I don't know. I was expecting the skill level to be a little higher, right? We're talking about Deontay Wilder, who's a former world champion. He had a bunch of title defenses.
He was at the top of the game, you know what I'm saying, a couple years ago.
Yeah. So to see him, to see that, it was a little, I was okay. The skill really isn't here, but it was the entertainment value. It was like a scrap at the end of the day, like a street fight. These guys weren't even boxing in there. They were just going in there and trying to knock each other's head off. So it was entertaining and it was fun. As a boxing fan, I enjoyed the fight. I also think that the right man won. I think it was very messy, like we were saying, but Wilder was, I believe he was landing a little bit better shots. He was also, his movement, I think, was a little bit better. Whereas Chisora, I mean, you already know what you're going to get with Chisora. You know, he goes forward, he kind of ducks his head down, and he tries to find these big overhands and, you know, get the win like that. So I think Wilder won it. You know, it was a split decision, but Wilder was over the moon ecstatic about it, you know, saying that this is like a middle finger to all the haters that were talking shit about him. And, I mean, I guess so. I mean, he did get the victory. Now he passed after the fight. Anthony Joshua was there. And Wilder, it looked like Wilder wanted a piece of Anthony Joshua. So maybe that can be in the future.
Yeah, I mean, before we even get to, you know, what's next for Wilder in his career and maybe even Chisora, let's break down the fight a little bit. One of the things I did not like about this fight at all was the fact of that referee. Who the fuck is that referee? Some of those calls that he made, at one point, Wilder had Chisora on the ropes, and he just decided to step in. For what reason? To save his boy? You know what I'm saying? Like, there was that, and also some of the knockdowns that weren't really knockdowns. Like, what happened to like replay? Let's look at the tape. No, he just calls he makes the call and just takes it off of a face value.
Yeah, the referee definitely seemed very inexperienced. Yeah, like you were saying, that one time Chisora kind of just put his arms on the ropes, and Wilder, rightfully so, goes to pounce on him and start throwing some combinations, and the referee gets in there and stops it. I don't know exactly why. So, yeah, a lot of those things it was very bad to see. I thought, you know, for it being, because the referee had like no control over the fight. So sometimes. Do
you remember when they were fighting back and forth, and it was someone from Chisora's team goes up into the fucking ring? That's actually like a DQ like thing to do. Like, you can't have your own team members just walk into the fucking ring. Also, when Chisora went through the ropes a little bit, he had also a team member like push him back in.
Yeah. So that's insane. Chisora's his team was like helping him stay up into outside the ropes. So I don't know. I thought that was a bit weird as well. The referee, even a lot of times, they were hitting kind of behind the head, and you know, he'd say break, and then they would still continue to punch, and he wouldn't really. You could tell he was just not in control, and he also took a point away from Wilder for no reason. It was like a knockdown, and then Chisora got back up, and Wilder tried to knock him down again, but of course he like overswung, and he kind of pushed him, but unintentional. Like, it was not on purpose. He pushed him. Chisora kind of goes out of the ropes, and the referee takes a point away. I don't even know exactly why. So,
you know, he takes a point away from Wilder for doing that, but when I think it was Chisora, but when he picked up Wilder and like slammed him on the ground, or maybe it could have been Wilder slamming Chisora on the ground, no one said anything. You know what I'm saying? And that was like there was like two other instances where that happens and the referee doesn't say anything. So I didn't really like that, the picking and choosing, the calling here or there, and I feel like he did have some type of bias towards the Englishman. So I don't know. It is what it is. But I guess at the end of the day, I am glad that the right man did win.
Mm-hmm. Well, this was Deontay Wilder's first win by way of decision since 2015 when he fought Bermane Stiverne. So it's been over 10 years since he got a scorecard win. Every other win had been a KO or a TKO. So a pretty crazy fact right there for Deontay Wilder in regards to this win. But definitely it did open up a new opportunity for him. I mean, leading up to this fight, or before this fight was even announced, they had talks between Usyk and Deontay Wilder. Fight didn't come to fruition. This fight happened, but now Deontay Wilder's out there calling out Anthony Joshua. Last time we saw Anthony Joshua was when he stopped Jake Paul, the up and coming number one El Gallo. Stopped him on that Netflix special back late last year. So Anthony Joshua has been training with Team Usyk. There's been lots of clips of them training. He's actually very good buds with Tim Tszyu now. But yeah, Deontay Wilder called him out, and he wants that fight. He even called him a coward, called him that he was scared to fight him. And as we all know it, Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua had always been a big matchup when they were both in their primes a couple of years back. The fight never came to happen, and many people thought the fight would never happen, but we are now at this moment in time where Deontay Wilder got the win. Anthony Joshua got his win. the timeline seems to be there, even though they're past their prime. The fight could come to fruition. Thoughts about that?
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that Wilder called out Anthony Joshua. And it kind of seemed like Wilder was very proud of himself. And I think he should be, right? He got the win. These past couple years have not been treating him that well. The boxing fans have been hating a little bit too much. They've been maybe a little bit too harsh on him. But at the same time, I feel like he won that fight like by split decision. It wasn't like he was beating the shit out of Derek Chisora, right? This was a very competitive fight. And listen, man, Derek Chisora isn't like an Anthony Joshua. You know, there's levels to this. And I think if Deontay Wilder's team is like actually, if they're not just yes men and hype men, then they should like look at the fight and be like, yo, we got a lot of work to do. Because if you're going up there against Anthony Joshua and you put that type of performance that you did against Derek Chisora, I don't think it's going to go that good for you. So for Anthony Joshua, I would like that fight a lot. You know, there's definitely been bad blood in the past between these two fighters. It's never happened. But, I mean, Joshua, if he's looking for a big win to come back, you know, to bring his career back into the spotlight, I think a knockout against Deontay Wilder would be amazing. So I'd love to see that fight, man. You know, we've been talking about that fight for such a long time. I think it's a great time to have this fight.
I don't know about great time. I think a great time would have been at least like 5 years ago, if that. But, you know, things happen for a reason. That fight didn't happen. I'm not too keen about these two guys fighting. You know, they're way past their prime. Wilder just did not look the best on Saturday against a guy who was a gatekeeper, a serious gatekeeper, you know, to say the least, you know, a tough warrior against Chisora. But yeah, Wilder's just not the same, man. You know, he's kind of gun shy, and he's not the same Wilder that we're accustomed to seeing him. You know, back then, like he would just stick out the jab or, you know, create that distance. Against Chisora, he couldn't create no fucking distance. He was just fighting Chisora's fight the whole fucking fight. Do you think AJ doesn't have a lot more ring IQ? Bro, he's gonna make Wilder look like a novice. He's just gonna like put him out of his misery like in under 6. And then going back to the Usyk fight, I'm glad that Wilder didn't even fight Usyk, because if he would have fought Usyk, Usyk would have stopped him in like fucking 4 rounds. I thought Wilder still had a little bit in the tank, but with this fight against Chisora, he's not the same anymore. I would like he's just an old shell of himself. So would it be entertaining for me to see Wilder get knocked out? Yes. Would it be great for AJ's career, you know, to get a good win, to have a good name like Wilder under his resume? Yes, but I think it's a little too late for that.
Well, we'll see, because Deontay Wilder is very adamant about having that matchup, verbally calling him out right to his face as well. So that fight is definitely up in the air as a potential fight for later down the line. In regards to Derek Chisora, he is now 42 years old, lost against Deontay Wilder. A lot of people for many years now have been calling for him to retire, stating, you've been in a lot of wars, you've had your great fights, your great moments, but maybe it's time for you to you know, hang up the gloves. And even Deontay Wilder himself said that he took it a little bit easy on Derek Chisora because he knows he had a family. Even when he knocked him down at one point, he was telling Derek Chisora, I love you, before knocking him down. So people are speculating, you know, maybe it's time for the 42-year-old Derek War Chisora, despite many moments he's given to the UK audience, for him to retire. Should he retire, or should he have one more last, you know, farewell fight to end off the career?
Well, I was under the impression that this was Chisora's last fight. You know, all the commentator team was nonstop what they were saying. Chisora, this is going to be his last fight. After the fight ended, they were, you know, giving congrats to Chisora, saying, you know, he had a great career. And I think it is time. You know, at 42 years old, I mean, what else is he going to do, right? He's not going to go for a title run. There's no chance that he's going to tear through the division's top contenders and then get a shot at Usyk. So what else is he going to do? just go into another war where he might lose, against another heavyweight. I just don't think it's worth it, man. He's given us a great career. He's been one of UK's top heavyweights for a very long time now. He's had ups, he's had downs. I think it's enough, man. Ideally, it would be great to send off your career with a win.
Yeah.
But, sometimes it just doesn't happen. Yeah. And I think he really does have to take into consideration his, health. At 42 years old. And, after, the first 4 rounds, I could feel, he was getting a little tired. I think he did get a second wind. But even then, I don't know. I don't think his cardio is there. His conditioning, I don't think it's the same as it used to be. I just don't see the point. There's no real goal for him other than maybe just get a win, where I just don't think that's really worth it. So I'd like to see him retire and have a good send-off for him.
Yeah, it's like an old pony with the same tricks. You know what I'm saying? Chisora can get a new team, but we're still going to see the exact same Chisora that we've been seeing. Interestingly enough, though, I didn't know this, but at 16, he moved into the UK, and at 18, he had a couple fights maybe as an amateur, and then at around 18, 19, he became a professional. So up until then, until now, he's just been a warrior his whole adult life. You know what I'm saying? This is all he's ever known. So I understand maybe he may be hesitant. Maybe he's gone a little bit too long and maybe retiring. But, he's a warrior at the end of the day. That's all he's ever known. But, yeah, I guess to the point where, obviously he's not going to become a world champion. He's not going to get the opportunity to fight for a world championship title. What is he going to do? Continue to be a serious gatekeeper? What's next for him? Moses Tumwa? You know what I'm saying? Someone like that. That's like a fight that he's going to lose and for sure obviously get stopped. So I understand if he keeps going, it'd be because of the money. You know what I'm saying? He does have a really big fan base. But yeah, there's no point, man. Retire. You got a family and kids and stuff like that. Go retire and, enjoy the rest of your life with them.
Mm-hmm. Well, this was definitely a fight that a lot of people were very happy with. They thought it was a good scrap. Very entertaining, and many people are deeming it to have a round of the year and a fight of the year contender. So definitely did live up to the expectations. The fight between Deontay Wilder, as he got the split decision over Derek Chisora at the O2 Arena. Let's move on to the next topic at hand. We're going down to the super welterweight division, where we had Tim Tszyu return in Australia as he defeated Denis Nurja, the undefeated contender, in a 10-round battle. Tim Tszyu has been building up his career once again after the devastating loss to Sebastian Fundora in the rematch last year. He's now had 2 fights over in Australia, back in his hometown, and he's gotten 2 UD wins. This past weekend, he got the UD win over undefeated contender Nurja, in which he knocked down Nurja in round 4 and contested himself to be the better fighter overall, where he ultimately called out, right? Errol Spence Jr.
Oh, yeah, he did.
So now, first off, thoughts about Tim Tszyu and thoughts about the potential matchup for later down the line against the big fish, Errol Spence.
Well, I'm happy to see Tim Tszyu win. I'm a fan of him. I was a fan of him when he was on his world title run, and he finally got it. I've always been a big fan of him. I think because of his father, Kostya Tszyu, definitely a legendary fighter, an icon for sure. It's kind of sad to see how his career turned out, but he's slowly building it back up. Now he got this second UD win, and there's the plan is for him to have a big fight against Errol Spence Jr., the big fish, finally coming back after his KO loss against Terrence Crawford. So that's interesting. It's an interesting time for him. In regards to the fight, I don't know. I think I just don't really see the same Tim Tszyu as I used to. I think he kind of lost some finesse, and he's relying a lot on brute strength and brute force. He's he was walking this guy down, and he dominated him for sure. But I don't think you're going to be able to do that against the top guys at 154. He kind of not really that much technique. You know, he was going in there, just walking him down. He was throwing punches sometimes and just get completely out of position and change stances. I didn't really enjoy the performance. I think it was fun. It was exciting for the fans, but for a future fight against the top guys at 154, I don't think that style was gonna work. So we're gonna see. You know, like I said, his next fight is supposed to be against Errol Spence Jr., who has been out of the ring for about 2 years, maybe even more. So maybe that's gonna work against him. We're gonna have to wait and see, but I'm just happy to see Tim Tszyu get another W.
Yeah, I guess so am I. You know what I'm saying? It's always great to be on that winning track. But, you know, I was a little bit scared for Tim, especially when we saw that head clash. I could tell, like, something in his eyes was like, oh, my God. Like, you know, is this Fundora? I felt like he maybe got flashbacks or something. But, I mean, he won. Some of the things that you said, Asa, just relying on his power, really, you know, trying to get him out of there. You know, he did get that knockdown early in the fight, but I haven't seen the same Tim Tszyu since that first loss against Fundora. I don't see that intensity, that fire, that young up and coming guy from Australia. I don't see that anymore. I just see a guy who seems to be kind of like, I don't want to say on the older side, but like a guy who doesn't seem like a serious contender anymore. A guy that can become a champion anymore. I feel like he can be just on the cusp, but I don't know. Like I think when you're a fighter like in Tim's position, who's been in tough losses like that back to back, you know, sometimes it does take a little bit out of you, and I think that's what we have witnessed and what we are witnessing with Tim. So, you know, he got the job done, and the commentator asked him, so Errol Spence, are you going to fight Errol Spence? And, you know, Tim, it kind of seemed as though he just kind of half-assed called him out. And so I believe Errol Spence had something to say on Twitter. He was like, yeah, this shit ain't sweet. So it looks like the big fish, you know, has been out of the ring for a very long time. It looks like maybe he may be motivated to come back against Tim.
Yeah, and I really don't know about that decision, man. I mean, when a fighter is out for that long after such a devastating loss, I don't know if he's going to be able to be the same mentally, you know. And there was even questions before the fight against Terrence Crawford that Errol Spence wasn't really the same after his car crash that he had. People were saying that, you know, he kind of looks a little different. He doesn't really look as strong, as fast. So there's been questions looming over his performances for a very long time now, and he's been completely out of the fight game for 2 years. Now, supposedly the plan is him and Tim Tszyu are gonna fight each other. I like Tim Tszyu's chances. You know, I think maybe in Errol Spence's prime he could do some. He could get the fight, but listen, it's been 2 years. You know, it's been 2 years, and inactivity is one of the biggest things that kills a fighters. So, like, Errol Spence being out of the ring for that long, I just don't see the comeback being so successful. And say what you want about Tim Tszyu and his performances, he's been active. And I think that's way more important than inactivity for 2 years by Errol Spence.
I get what you're saying, and I do understand that, right? You know, inactivity kills every fighter. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, Errol hasn't been in the ring for a very long time, but within these past 2 years, Tim Tszyu has been getting his ass kicked just about by everybody.
No.
He's into, okay, maybe not everybody. Okay, two guys.
Yeah,
but those were serious losses. Those losses came with serious damage. You know what I'm saying? Multiple knockdowns, cuts, brain damage, PTSD. Sure, he's active, right? He just fought, but like, how's that going to play into a factor? Like, if we don't see the same fire inside of him against a guy who hasn't fought, but he hasn't sustained any damage. Maybe he's gone back to the drawing board and, you know, really broken down, you know, that fight with Terrence Crawford, and, you know, now he's going to move. And maybe they're doing a great calculation. Maybe they're getting Tim because they know he's like a wounded animal.
It took Errol Spence and his team 2 years to break down that loss for Crawford. Seems like a little too long. I'll be honest. Seems like a little too long time. Listen, I get that, but Spence, you want to talk about damage? Spence took some damage on that Terrence Crawford fight. You know what I'm saying? That was an ass whipping from the first bell. And I remember back then, we were all Errol Spence fans, and we were like, the big fish is going to win. He got his ass kicked bad. And he got, thankfully, the referee, I'm pretty sure it was Harvey Dock, stepped in at the time that he did, because if he didn't, Spence was going to get seriously KO'd. So I get the damage part, but Tszyu, he lost against the top guys. We're talking about Sebastian Fundora, the number 1 or the number 2 guy at that division. And Bakhram Murtazaliev, who right now he's going through a little bit of a PR crisis, right? After that loss to Josh Kelly. But you can't lie. That guy has heavy-ass hands, and he hits very hard. He's still a dangerous fighter. So, I don't know. I still place a lot more emphasis on the activity from Tim Tszyu than maybe Errol Spence saving his brain from damage for these past 2 years.
I do get that, but, I mean, with this recent performance against Tim, he just seems like damaged goods. And Errol Spence, he hasn't fought in a fat minute. He looks like he's in great shape, so maybe he's been at least, training somewhat. Maybe not seriously. I don't know how serious he's been with the sparring side or more the boxing side. But if they do end up fighting later this year, I'm pretty sure that's going to come into play. Sure, he's taken a very long break. But, just like what you said, Tim fought the best. Errol Spence fought the very best. You know what I'm saying? He fought Terrence Crawford, the guy who later on beat Canelo Alvarez. And Errol Spence has been boxing his whole entire life. So who's to say that out of the 15 years he's been fighting both as an amateur and as a professional, 2 years off could also do more great than harm.
I don't know about that. Maybe you're a gambling man. There's a lot of mystery surrounding Errol Spence right now. We don't know that the level that he's going to come back. I might be a little bit more pessimistic. I don't think he's going to come back 100% how we used to see him, especially after those 2 years. I think there's definitely going to be some PTSD. But listen, it's possible, I suppose. Maybe he rejuvenated and got healed up. But I find that very unlikely.
Don't talk shit about my fish.
Well, I think we also got to keep in mind, too, that the fight would be at 154, a weight division that Errol Spence has never fought in. And, look, I'm in the same agreement with Asa. I think I'm liking Tim Tszyu's chances in the fight, especially if it gets made immediately right away for sometime later down the year. I would like it a bit more if Errol Spence at least had a comeback fight in there, so we could at least see him first off, him getting a feel at the 154 division, and also for us as fans to see where he's at mentally and physically after that Terrence Crawford loss. Because I'm telling you, bro, if you take that much of a beating and you're gone for that long, I mean, that beating must have been something grand, man. I'm just saying. So he's been gone for 2.5. It's going to be 3 years this year. Yeah. It's going to be 3 years since he last returned to the ring. So that's a long time out of the ring. So he definitely had to recover from that. But look, I'm liking Tim Tszyu's chances. I like the activity. Of course, I don't think he's at the same level that he was prior to the Fundora first fight, and even I think the Murtazaliev fight was the one that killed him off. But I do like his chances a lot better than Errol Spence, and just simply because we as fans need to see Errol Spence in the ring as at least a tune-up, so we could see where he's at, and so we could kind of set the adjust where he could potentially fall into in this new division that he'd be fighting at. So overall, I think it's a good matchup. I think it'd be very interesting to see. And I think a lot of people do want to see the return of the big fish. I want to see the return of the big fish. The question is, how will he return? How will he look when he returns? And those are questions that will definitely need to be answered once he decides to come back. But Tim Tszyu, 154, returns with a decisive UD win over an undefeated contender in Dennis Nurja, back in Australia as he extends his win streak to 2 fights back to back. Been active, so I appreciate that from Tim Tszyu. So let's see if he's able to get that Errol Spence fight later down the line.
If these two guys do end up fighting later on this year, because we understand business, right? You know, both of these guys fight underneath the banner of PBC. There's another guy that fights under that same banner that has also been pretty inactive, that has been very vocal recently about wanting to come back, that he's still the man, that he didn't lose his belts, they got taken away from him, and that's Charlo. So I want to see a fucking loser bracket. Yeah, so I want to see whoever, if Spence and Tim fight, the winner has to fight Charlo, and then whoever loses, they just have to retire. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Charlo coming back. I mean, he's been talking, he's been training, but there's still no word on a possible opponent or a possible return date for him. So right now, this is all, I'm taking it simply as talk. Once we get more rumors.
No, he's training, bro. Have you seen the videos?
Well, I know he's been
training.
training.
Have you seen the pictures?
I'll give him that. He's been training. He's getting back in the ring, but like I said, I'm still waiting on that potential return date for him because it's been a while since he fought as well. So we'll see what happens in regards to both Charlo and Errol Spence. And that fight between them two is also a big matchup fight, especially down in Texas. So there's still big money fights for the big fish. So I don't understand why he's been taking so long to return. So we'll see what happens. 2026 is definitely the year for the 154 division and the year for the return of a lot of old former superstars for boxing. But let us move down the line to the final topic of today's episode. We'll return back to the heavyweight division where we see, talking about old superstars, the return of Tyson Fury. The Gypsy King returns back to take on Makhmudov in a ring special. Last time we saw Thomas Fury. Last time we saw Tyson Fury was when he lost the rematch against Alexander Usyk back in 2024. Since then, he then announced his retirement for the 20th time, but has vowed to return and is taking on Makhmudov. Makhmudov, on the other hand, has been getting some wins in there. He has 2 losses against Vianello and Caballel, but his last win was against Dave Allen over in the UK. So, Makhmudov, Tyson Fury, thoughts about this matchup?
Yeah, man, the Gypsy King is back. It took him long enough. We all know that, he says, I'm retiring, I'm leaving the sport. We just give him some months, and then he comes back, right? So he's finally back, and against Makhmudov on Netflix. I mean, I think this is a pretty big deal. I think Tyson Fury is already a superstar, and for him to be fighting on Netflix, I mean, that's great news, right? I was really excited to see this just as a boxing fan. That I like to see more boxing events on Netflix. I think it's great. I think more people tune into the fights. So I think it's going to be great, man. I believe it was a strategic selection to pick Makhmudov as Fury's opponent coming out of retirement because Makhmudov is a very dangerous fighter. No one can deny that this guy has dynamite in his hands, right? This guy hits really hard. At the same time, though, he's very slow. Yeah. Like very slow. His punches are very telegraphed. They compare him to like being a robot. Like he's just very slow, man. And I think for Tyson Fury, someone that, people, they say he moves like a middleweight, right? He's super light on his feet. He's 6'9", but he's moving like a middleweight around that ring. I think he's gonna shine really well. I think he's gonna be using his jabs a lot. He's going to be using a lot of lateral movements. And Makhmudov, he's going to be trying to rely on that right hand. And that's going to build some tension, right? Because as boxing fans, we're going to be at the edge of our seat saying, is Makhmudov going to land that big right hand and knock out Tyson Fury? Or is Tyson Fury going to keep on stinging like a butterfly floating like a butterfly and stinging like a bee? So we're going to see, but I'm excited because I'm a big fan of Tyson Fury, so I'm always excited to see the fight week antics.
Right. It's never a boring fight when Tyson Fury's fighting. I want to talk a little bit about the business aspect in regards to this fight with Netflix. Just like what you said, I was also very surprised that Netflix was giving basically Tyson Fury a chance to, have a fight on their platform. You know what I'm saying? This is what, the third time they've only ever had like a boxing event on their platform. So I thought that was cool. Obviously this isn't Tyson Fury's first time on Netflix. He's had that reality TV show, I think about like a year or two ago.
Yeah, that TV show that literally no one watched.
I watched it. No, that's a lie. I saw clips. I'm up to date. But no, so I think Netflix understands, Tyson, it's not about the potential. They understand that Fury has the ability to sell a fight. Even if Makhmudov isn't a guy that, in the press conference, like I'm pretty sure he'd be saying like one-line sentences. You know what I'm saying? He just gives direct responses to some of the questions that are being asked. No flair, no nothing, just very professional, very boring, a little bit boring. But Tyson Fury, he's able to spice things up. You know what I'm saying? He's able to sell a fight. He's able to sell himself, and I think that's why Netflix was. They were in agreement on to have this fight on their platform. So go for boxing. Second off, it's going to be in the UK, so I'm expecting a packed out stadium. I'm not sure where they're fighting at, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be one of these big stadiums. So I'm expecting the crowd to be singing "Sweet Caroline," to be rallying behind their fighter. So that's good. In regards to this fight, though, I think it's also very interesting the fact that Tyson Fury is fighting up against another guy who's like 6'8", 6'7". Makhmudov, I mean, he's like a Russian giant. You know what I'm saying? Oh, yeah, you know what I'm saying. So this guy is tough. He's durable, tall. He's got length, and and he's very rugged, right? But he does have a flaw. He's just one-dimensional. You were saying also he's slow. Yeah, he's pretty fucking slow, man. So I'm expecting Tyson Fury just to dance around him. This is honestly a winnable fight. So I'm expecting, now that we've entered fight week, I'm expecting Tyson Fury to kind of like sell the fight a little bit more, show that, he's not just, Tyson Fury has so many aspects to his game. So I'm expecting him to be loose, wild, have fun in there. But at the end of the day, get a win.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of big expectations for Fury, and also a lot of questions because he's now on the older side of his career, and people will be questioning, well, you've been out for a year and a half, nearly 2 years, I think. So how good are your legs? Can you still move around like you used to? How big will he come into the fight? Because he had the very genius idea of coming in heavier for the rematch, and that didn't play out too well for him when he fought Usyk. So there's also always going to be questions about regarding the weight, what weight he's going to come at, because if he's obviously big and heavy 280s, then he's going to go in to walk you down. If he goes in lighter like 260s, then he's going to go in there to just outbox you. So there's a lot of questions to be asked about Tyson Fury, whether or not the Alexander Usyk fights played not only a physical toll on him, but also a psychological toll. Because, I mean, how do Tyson Fury going up, in his entire career, had always been prideful about being undefeated, being the best in the world, and getting 2 back-to-back losses against Usyk and mega fights and undisputed fights. That's got to do something for a fighter of the ego of Tyson Fury. Yeah,
and I'm pretty sure we saw that because if I don't know if you guys remember, but there was clips of him being dragged out of a bar. I think a month after his fight. Yeah, so obviously, Tyson Fury is a guy who is, has a big ego. He's a guy that's very braggadocious. You know what I'm saying? And when you look at his story, he came back from depression, from addiction, to becoming a world champion yet again. So for this small Ukrainian guy to beat his ass not once but twice, I think it did have a toll on his mental state, which is the reason why we haven't seen him fight up until now. So I think now maybe he's cleared the cobwebs. He seems to be back to his old self. And after this win come Saturday, he's looking for bigger and better things.
Well, Alexander Usyk himself stated, we talked about this before too, that Tyson Fury is still in his agenda for his final 3 fights, which would be the trilogy against Fury. So Fury is obligated to win this weekend against Makhmudov. Like you guys said, this is a very winnable fight for him stylistically. He could perform well, but this all just falls down on Fury to see what kind of Fury we get. Personally, I'm predicting him to actually get the stoppage win. I think he's going to come back in emphatic fashion and stop Makhmudov. They're fighting over at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. They're in Tottenham, so I'm expecting him to showcase his status as king, quote unquote, as he returns to back to the limelight and returns to try to go for that run at a championship again.
Yeah, I mean, I said it before. I do think Tyson Fury should be winning this fight. The only hurdle that I can see is if his legs aren't there. You know, if his legs aren't what they used to be, and he starts getting into like a more messier fight, a more clinch type of fight with Makhmudov, I definitely do think there could be some trouble, because Makhmudov is very physically strong. And we've seen Tyson Fury get manhandled. Like, he's a big guy. He's 6'9", and he weighs a bunch, but he's not very physically strong. You know, he's not. There's plenty of other heavyweights that have a lot more physical strength than him and can kind of manhandle him and do what they want. And I think Makhmudov is one of those guys. You know, yeah, he's a big Eastern European guy, and he's just got that physical strength to him. So Tyson Fury definitely should. I think the game plan should be, you know, counter. Be on your legs. Wait for Makhmudov to make a mistake, overextend, because he will, and then you counter him. And I think if he does that, I think he can easily win this fight. I don't think he's going to get the KO. I think it's going to be a unanimous decision victory for Tyson Fury. I think he's going to shine, and then he's going to get on the mic, and he's going to give us a typical Tyson Fury post-fight interview.
You think he's going to sing?
I hope so.
We got to see if on Paul Marker there's like a Tyson Fury victory and that he sings right afterwards. Yeah, also I'm also in agreement with you. You know, Makhmudov is a tough guy. You know, he has been stopped, but I mean, he got stopped against Caballel, and Caballel is just a young and up and coming guy. So, in regards to Tyson Fury, you know, he has been out of the ring for a minute, so I'm expecting him to come in light. I really do hope that he does come in light. I'm talking about under 270, and I'm just expecting him to use that speed, to use that ring IQ, and just to use the whole ring, you know what I'm saying? Use the whole ring to his advantage and just expose his abilities against Makhmudov, and just taking an easy UD victory against him come Saturday.
Yeah, definitely a lot of expectation for the Gypsy King. We're all predicting him to get the win over Makhmudov this upcoming weekend on Netflix, in which he will be probably fighting in a sold-out arena in Tottenham. So the return of Tyson Fury is at hand, and we're happy to see his return. But I believe we covered everything that we wanted to talk about in today's episode. Let us know down below your official predictions for the return of the Gypsy King. Also, let us know about Tim Tszyu against Errol Spence. And lastly, your thoughts on Derek Chisora's loss against the Bronze Bomber Deontay Wilder. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us on all forms of social media. We are on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Lastly, we're trying to build up a community on Discord, and you guys joining would be greatly appreciated. This was Pablo, and I'm with Rudo Nasa, and this was the Last Round Podcast. Thank you for watching.